At the League, we are a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that has been working on public policy research and advocacy since 1912. This year, we are celebrating serving Michigan for 110 years. Our mission is to promote racial equity, economic security, health and well-being for all people in Michigan through policy change. We are the only state-level organization that addresses poverty and racial injustice in a comprehensive way. As part of our policy work, the League also houses the Kids Count project in Michigan. It's where our Kids Count director, Kelsey Perdue, will be discussing this information with you shortly. As you can see right now, maternal and infant health is something that is particularly relevant for me, as it is, I'm sure, with many of you. Whether you're a parent, an advocate, a policymaker, or frankly, any Michigander, we should all want our state to be a place where kids and families can thrive, and that they have the policy supports to do so. And that's where our Kids Count work comes in. Officially released today, the Michigan League for Public Policy's 2022 Kids Count in Michigan data profiles are out. They analyze data and identify trends. It's been a big week for us. It's where we identify trends for the entire state, all 83 counties in four categories: economic security, education, health and safety, family, and community. And the data shows some really important progress that we made. A lot of times we only focus on the negatives, but we really want to highlight some of the progress that we've seen in Michigan. The rate of child poverty has decreased nearly 17% statewide between 2010 and 2020. Child poverty rates declined in 82 counties over that same decade. But while more residents in Michigan can make ends meet compared to a decade ago, there are still 1.5 million Michigan households that can't afford their basic necessities. And that is really important to recognize that our families, our friends, our neighbors, that are not able to make ends meet. The Kids Count data profiles also include some policy recommendations. It's really important for us to take the data that we see and figure out ways that we can make systemic change in Michigan. And particularly right now, I want to lift up a very timely policy recommendation, and that's increasing our earned income tax credit in Michigan. This is the only tax credit proposal in Michigan that right now has bipartisan support, which is very difficult to do in our polarized climate. The proposal has bipartisan support both between the governor and the Michigan legislature. They've collectively set aside $7 billion in state revenue to negotiate potential tax cuts. And we really want to see increasing the state level EITC as a part of it. It's a way to help support working families. Increasing the EITC not only has bipartisan support, it has wide cross-sector support, as the League and more than 100 other business organizations, advocacy groups, faith groups, nonprofit organizations have come together and to advocate for this important proposal. Specifically in the Grand Rapids community, we've seen support for an expansion of the EITC from the Grand Rapids Chamber of Commerce, Heart of West Michigan, United Way, and so many others that are part of this community. Increasing the EITC rate from its current 6% of the federal credit to 30% of the federal credit means a difference of around an average of $500 per household for many families with children. And that money goes directly back into our economy to help families make ends meet, whether it's for housing, whether it's to pay a utility bill, whether it's to address childcare, which we know is a significant issue in our community, or pay for transportation costs. It makes a difference in the lives of families, and it's money that goes back to support the economy. This change would contribute about $553 million to local economies and small businesses when they're struggling right now. It is most often spent on necessities like childcare, repairs, new appliances, groceries, and so much more. Increasing the EITC is also a two-generation policy that helps kids by helping their parents. And it has been proven to have a myriad of positive benefits to kids. We know if we want kids to be healthy, we need to support their parents and families, and this is a really important way for us to do that. The governor and Michigan legislature both agree on the issue in principle. The money is there, and so we really urge them to continue to enact this positive change when it comes time to negotiate tax cuts in Michigan. I want to thank everybody for coming out today. We've got a wonderful agenda. Kelsey is going to talk a little bit about KidsCon. We have a panel of speakers from the local community. So we're really excited to be here today. I also want to thank the league team. They've spent hundreds of hours putting together the profiles, the communications around this, and then lifting up public policy change. I also want to thank all of our generous supporters. There's so many foundations and organizations that make KidsCon possible, and we couldn't do that without them. Specifically, I would like to thank the Fry Foundation, not only for their generous use of their space today, it's lovely to be here, but also for making our new Grand Rapids city-specific profile possible. We wouldn't have been able to do that without them. So I'd like to call up Lynn, from the Fry Foundation. She's gonna speak a little bit about their role and their work. So Lynn, I'm turning over the microphone to you.
Thank you, Monique. I'm so glad not to be in your shoes. I wish you the best of luck. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lynn Taylor. I'm the program director here at the Fry Foundation. Welcome to our space. It's just wonderful to have you here. We've been in this space for really 2 decades now, but this is what we envisioned when we came here. We had a small staff and a lot of space. But what we were thinking about when we came into this space was this, was community coming into this space and talking about things that are really important to the community. And this event really recognizes that. So thank you for being here today. Of course, we're excited to be a part of the release of these data. This has been a part of what the Fry Foundation has done since its inception. We're coming up on our 50th year in a couple of years. And the well-being of children has been a priority since the beginning. We're in our 3rd generation of governance here, and the well-being of children continues to be a priority for us. So the work of KidsCon really is central to that because it allows us to make data-driven decisions. Although we've only been in partnership with Michigan League for about a decade or so, we talk about this in 10-year increments. It's crazy. When you think about that in the life of a child, it really does matter. We are not moving fast enough. This is important work, but we really do need to accelerate our work. Monique mentioned that we are making progress, but there's more work to be done here. And we're delighted to be a part of this local data, bringing the data to Grand Rapids. To the extent that we can understand what's going on with children in our own neighborhoods, we will be better off, certainly as funders, as policy advocates, as policy makers, and as allies as well. We would like to do our work, our funding work, based on data. It tells us whether or not we're making impact. And I know that sounds like, duh, right? But it doesn't always happen. People go with gut. They go with what they've always done. They go with what they heard. They go with what they think. With or without data, we're putting a stake in the ground. This data kind of is important. It kind of is important. And so we want to make our decisions based on data, and what the Michigan League is doing is really important to us. It allows us to measure where we start and then evaluate our impact once we've made our grant. And the other piece of what we appreciate about the data that Michigan League brings to bear is there's just so much, noise is the wrong word, but there's just so much going on right now. We're all getting pulled in so many different directions. Some of what's going on is really important. A lot of what's going on isn't so important. And what the data does is allow us to point our attention to what matters. And we really, really value that. So this partnership is really important to us. This really is an amazing time for us. It's an amazing moment for us. We have so much opportunity to lead the way in how you show up for children, how neighborhoods show up for children, how funders show up for children, how communities show up for children. And just want to encourage all of us as we hear the data that Kelsey's going to offer this morning. And we think about what we can do, each of us, to advance the well-being of children based on what we're doing. It's great to hear what's going on, but it's even better to do something about it once we've done. So with that, I really want to get out of the way and bring up the star of the show today, Kelsey. She's going to offer us what we've been waiting for in terms of understanding how things are doing in Michigan. So thank you all.
Good morning. My worst fear is that I'm going to get into a coughing fit when we're still tackling COVID. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But good morning. My name is Kelsey Purdue. I'm the director of Kids Count in Michigan. So thank you all for your commitment to children and families. Thank you all for thank you all for being here today as stakeholders, as partners, as participants in this work. You all were really hand selected. We really wanted you to be in the room today as we released our 2022 data profiles. The data profiles, some of which you have in your packets, contain over 50 indicators of child and family well-being. So I'm not going to go over all of them, right? But they are jam-packed data tools. And that's 50 indicators for every geographic area we cover. We produce 91 profiles, one for the state of Michigan, for 4 major regions, for every Michigan county, out of 83 counties, as well as select cities. And because of the support of the Thrive Foundation, we were able for the first time ever to produce a Grand Rapids-based profile. So as Monique mentioned, while we have thankfully seen indicators like child poverty decrease over the last decade, we still know we have work to do. In Grand Rapids, today, our child poverty rate stands at over double the state average. That's a point of concern. We know that we are in a housing crisis. It's a big point of conversation here across the state and in our region. And we know that affordable, safe, stable housing is key to child and family well-being. It impacts health, it impacts education, it impacts your connection to community, it impacts a family's ability to be able to make ends meet. So it is key. But in our city today, over 30% of families are burdened by high cost housing. And 20% of our own kids in Grand Rapids live in areas that are considered high poverty, which means that they are at risk of having inequitable access to strong schools, quality jobs, and robust medical institutions. So policy matters, our advocacy matters, and there are short-term tangible wins that we can and that we have accomplished when we work together. So let me name a few of those that have happened over the last year since our last data release. So in the last year, we have raised eligibility for child care subsidies so that more families can access critical quality early learning. We have funded for the first time in 10 years the state's Housing and Community Development Fund to support housing needs for families that are low income or middle income across the state, including here. And we've also secured new education funding to target students that are at risk of failure or economic disadvantage. We couldn't have those major wins without all of us coming together, having the data as a guide, hearing it with voice, and advocating at the state level. So we know there's so much to do, right? As we celebrate those wins, we know that there is still much to do in the data bears that out, but we know that we cannot do it without those who are most impacted by these issues: youth, parents, and community. And so when used in concert, these data profiles and community voice really allow us to clearly articulate our need and our next step solutions to improve child and family well-being. So with that said, I would like to introduce our first speaker, who's going to join and kind of add her voice to the conversation. Jaylyn Calderon is a high school senior at Grand Rapids Public Schools. She's also a member of the Grand Rapids Mayor's Youth Council. The Grand Rapids Mayor's Youth Council is it's part of our community's children at the City of Grand Rapids and is a public-private partnership between the city and Grand Rapids Public Schools. So please join me in welcoming Jaylyn.
Hi, I'm just going to introduce myself. So, hello, my name is Jaylyn Calderon Quiroso. I am a senior in the Grand Rapids Public School System and a member of the Grand Rapids Mayor's Youth Council. My parents have always told me, and my teachers also, that education is very important and valuable, yet we still fall short in areas of the education system, which is why Kid Count data is important to elected officials to understand how we are doing and also hear our stories and our personal experiences behind the data. I know fellow classmates, friends, and family that are struggling, whether it's financially or learning English as a second language. From personal experience, high school is very difficult, especially when you know you don't have all the resources you wish you did. Which is why it is important to adopt a true rated funding formula that would directly connect schools' funding with students' needs. It would provide more money for schools that are underserved and with lower incomes, and students that are also learning English as a second language, and students with special needs. It will help future students and my younger siblings with better access to a better education, but also surrounded based on what they need. Schools that value circumstances with what's happening at home, schools that help prioritize mental health, schools that teach you how to live even after you graduate, schools that are better developed with after-school programs, schools that are better funded, because every child, every student like me should be able to have access to an education that isn't just the bare minimum. Thank you.
Don't folks like Jayla make you feel confident. So next I want to invite our next speaker. So Kids Count in the League are part of a number of statewide coalitions with lots of partners all geared towards similar policy goals and policy wins. One of those are Think Babies Michigan. And so we focus around improving life for infants and toddlers in our state. And so Rochelle McKissick-Harris is a Think Baby Michigan parent co-chair, and I'm going to let her voice today. Let's welcome Rochelle.
Good morning, my name is Rochelle McKissick-Harris, and I'm a parent leader with Think Babies Michigan, which is a collaborative of more than 1,900 members, including the Michigan League for Public Policy and Kids Count in Michigan project, leaders, experts, families, organizations, and providers, all working together to improve the lives of babies prenatal to 3 years old, and therefore the well-being of our state as a whole. One of the policy priorities for Think Babies Michigan is to actively support efforts led by partners and allies that positively impact infants and toddlers and their families. Hence my role as a parent leader that serves on the executive committee and the steering committee for Think Babies Michigan. Another policy priority is to expand enrollment in and access to high-quality childcare, early intervention, home visiting, and preventative care services. Childcare is generally unaffordable and hard to find across the state. I have only recently been able to return to the workforce after giving birth to my son 6 months ago. The initial income eligibility threshold for subsidies increased from 150% to 185% of poverty through the fall of 2023, temporarily matching the national median, and state-required family payments were temporarily waived. Subsidy reimbursement rates for providers were also increased. I am advocating to ensure all families have access to childcare early learning regardless of their income, making the eligibility threshold of 185% permanent. Payments to providers should also increase to reflect the actual cost of care, increasing quality, availability, and access for families. This is a good start, but we know we can do more. As a family who was just over the limit and couldn't qualify for subsidy, it still makes it hard to find quality and affordable childcare in our communities. Rising inflation, low wages, and inequitable tax system causes 44% of children to live in households that are unable to afford basic expenses. The federal child tax credit, the CTC payment amounts were increased and extended to children and families with low or no earnings, and advanced monthly payments were provided to increase income stability. The CTC expansions lifted 114,000 Michigan children out of poverty and benefited another 1.9 million. As a family who received the EITC, it was critical to my family's financial stability. Those payments were used for childcare for our 3 boys. My husband and I were able to meet our responsibilities with ease while receiving these payments. To have stability and then for it to be taken away is devastating to any human being. I am also advocating to make COVID-era CTC and EITC payments permanent. Additionally, increase Michigan's earned income tax credit from its current 6% to 30% of the federal credit. Policymakers can make this change next week, so what are we waiting for? The data speaks to the need. So this is a call to action for our communities and our policymakers. Michigan families need you more, but more importantly, we are raising the next generation of leaders, and they deserve the best start possible in life. Thank you.
All right, finally, we have a lot of partners in the room, right? And we do a lot of community work, including community engagement work. We have our West Michigan Community Engagement Specialist here in the room who connects issues, programs and services to policy paths, right? And so we have one of those partners in the room, and that is Baxter Community Center. And so their Director of Learning and Parent, Ari Way, is going to speak to us last. Let's welcome Ari.
Early Childhood Center, and I always use my platform to advocate for teacher pay. Fair and equitable wages for our early childhood providers is very important to me, being a 20-year veteran in this field. During the COVID-19 pandemic, our nation called to keep our child care centers open immediately, drawing awareness to the critical role we play in the infrastructure of our country. I'm here today to encourage policymakers to continue to make long-term investments that support early childhood education as an infrastructure. Data shows that 1 in 5 early childhood educators live in poverty. In real life, this looks like early childhood directors going to work after they go to work. Teachers working 2 and 3 jobs and doing things for extra money, babysitting families, just thinking of creative ways to thrive. In the field, it also looks like turnover rates over 25%. I've lost high quality early childhood educators to factories, fast food that offers benefits, nursing homes. And it's heartbreaking to see them go, see our babies miss out on teachers that they loved. And my teachers do their taxes and they ask have they bought extra supplies and needs for their children. And they say yes, they still can't get that credit that teachers in K-12 educators get. Our workforce, we push our teachers to go and get education, to get their degrees, and still earn 22% less than kindergarten, 12th grade educators with bachelor's degrees. These professionals deserve thriving wages that are more than childcare workers, as the language always says. They are degree-earning professionals that shape the minds of the children that lead our nation. I'm advocating for our teachers today. Thank you so much for listening.
Now, isn't parent data with stories so powerful, right? And we see the true impact, true need and impact of this work. So can we just give it up and thank again, Jay Land. I'm gonna invite Monique back to close us out. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kelsey, and thank you so much to our community partners and our speakers. As Kelsey said, linking our data with the people that are directly impacted by it to help share the stories is one of the most important things that we do at the League. I want to thank everybody for coming out today. Our team is available, Kelsey and the rest of our team is available for questions afterwards, or we're happy to talk a little bit more in depth. Please pick up some packets, go to the website. If you have an opportunity for us to come out and speak to a local coalition or group about how to put this data into direct practice, we are always happy to do so. So please join us upstairs. We still have some more refreshments. Thank you so much for coming today. And again, thank you, Lynn and Brianna, for hosting us. You really couldn't have done a better host. We are very, very grateful. Thank you and have a good afternoon.
So, I don't know.